guys. My name is Gavin Frankel. I'm a senior game designer, as Atlee just said, on Dust 514. Yeah, let's get this started. Here at CCP, we have a habit of dreaming out loud, and we sometimes do this without giving players, I think, sufficient context to understand the improvements and the features that we bring to our games. So that's really what today's presentation is all about. It's advancing the core. It's the core shooter aspect, which really touches on a lot of things. We talk about the shooter, but it does include vehicles. There's a lot that goes into making Dust what it is. And that today what we're going to be talking about is providing that context for how we intend to get to those big dreams, sort of in the near future and in the far future. So yeah, we start off with, this is the approach for the purposes of the near future. It's defined as the next 6 to 12 months. Our focus, we've spent a lot of time developing the systems that we have. I don't know if you saw Anders Kaspersen's presentation yesterday, talking about the environments. We've spent a lot of effort on these systems. We've spent a lot of effort on our vehicle and our module and our skills and weapon systems. So the focus for the next 6 to 12 months is really just using these systems to the full extent, using what we have and just improving everything that's currently there. Beyond that, in the far future, sort of 18 months and beyond, we start working at laying down the groundwork for features that span multiple releases, as well as doing snapshot features, essentially small features that we can complete from end to end in a single release. For those of you who don't know, a release, we use Agile Scrum. A release is generally around 3 to 4 months of development time. So that gives you some sort of context for how long these sorts of features will take to get into your hands. Okay, the near future in mechanics, as I mentioned, we're going to be focusing on improving a lot of the core shooter mechanics. Aim assist improvements. The aim assist systems in the game right now are actually a combination of a host of systems that work in concert. We have the aim friction, which essentially, when your reticle moves over a target, it slows your reticle down, making it much easier to sort of get fine movement once you're actually on a target. We have aim adhesion, which essentially moves your reticule slightly as the player moves, so it kind of sticks you to him. We have aim magnetism, which rotates you slightly around a certain radius around the player, just to sort of keep him centered in your view. And like a good referee, essentially, these systems, they're only working when you don't notice them. So right now, they're dialed down quite a lot, so aiming is not as good as we would like it. I'm sure anyone in the room that's played Dust knows this. It can be fidgety to aim at things. We are working on this. We are improving these systems, and you'll see noticeable improvements in the next 6 to 12 months. Moving on, we have the scanning system improvements. We've done a lot of work on this in Uprising. The scanning system is much better, but there's still a lot of usability issues with electronic warfare is a huge part of Dust. It's coming in the future. We'll get to that. But scanning is one of these systems that really helps produce the electronic warfare that we want. So we'll be improving on this system, giving just better usability and better feedback on the various things. Have you been scanned? Have you not been scanned? How has your fitting actually helped to defeat somebody else's scan? Hacking improvements, we want to allow people to hack drop deployable equipment, drop uplinks, nanohives. You can hack them, turn them over to your side, sort of switch allegiance for these equipments, making that a little more strategic than other than just dropping it and running. We have the warpoint system improvements. I think it was 2 releases ago, we added cooldown on warpoints to try and discourage people from farming the repair tool stuff. Those warpoints got farmed a lot. People sort of not playing the game as we would like. So we added a cooldown to that. That has had a side effect in that you might not, as a Logi bro or someone who likes to do support roles where these sorts of warpoints are easily mined as such, you now don't get kind of the reward for your effort. So we will be refining those, improving that a little bit. We'll also be adding new warpoint rewards just to help flesh out everything. We'll be having headshot bonuses. We will have dropship bonuses for the pilot. We'll have scanning bonuses. So when you scan things out, you identify targets for your team. You will get warpoint rewards for doing these actions. Squad improvements. This is, of course, very important. This is the squad is sort of the most basic unit in Dust. It is the most basic unit of community, essentially, in a first-person shooter. The people that you fight with, that you fight alongside, these are your friends. These are the people that you will eventually build corporations and alliances with. So we will be focusing on improving just viewing squads, joining squads, and moving between battles with squads. A host of improvements coming there. Target intel improvements. Again, this builds into everything with electronic warfare, with just knowing how to engage your enemy. Right now, the text is not in an ideal position. You have to take your eyes off your target to see essentially the information that you need when you're actually engaging that target, so it's not good. We'll be adjusting the position, we'll be moving around the sizes and just making that a much better experience. Then in the far future, full electronic warfare gameplay. The reason I put this in the far future is that we're working towards the vision for electronic warfare. Electronic warfare is not a single system. It uses a lot of the systems I've just mentioned. It takes a lot of time to build and get right. So we will be working towards that in the near future. We'll be adding equipment and modules and things that actually help you do the kind of electronic warfare gameplay that we want. Things like, being able to switch off voice comms, being able to affect what your enemy sees on the battlefield. These are really, really important things. Being able to affect the information they get on their overview map or their mini-map. Generic information, generic icons becoming more detailed, being able to see, oh, this is not just an arrow, it is actually a light, heavy, or medium frame suit, things like that. Okay, the Dropsuits. Near future, as I mentioned, we'll be focusing on fleshing out things that we have. So we're not going to be adding new models, a host of new models. We'll just be focusing, as Brandon and Atlee mentioned in the keynote yesterday, focusing on the things that we have. So we'll be adding a Caldari and a Mara light frame. We'll also be adding the Caldari Galente and Minmatar heavy frames. Also in the near future, we'll be adding 2 new roles, the Commando and the Pilot. The Commando, I think everyone's really going to enjoy. It's a heavy frame suit, but we traded out the heavy slot for 2 light weapon slots. He also loses a fair amount of hit points, but I think just the convenience, the versatility that he gets essentially comes from his weapon loadout. We'll be dropping, he pays for that with fewer module slots, but I think he's going to be a great addition to your arsenal. Then we also have the Pilot. The Pilot, as his name suggests, is pretty much just a meat puppet outside of a vehicle. But once he gets into a vehicle, he will really improve just how that vehicle works. He'll improve the effectiveness of the modules fitted. He will improve the cooldown rate of those modules so that having him in the seat of your vehicle will be a real bonus rather than just having anybody else in the squad. Also coming in the near future is HUD improvements. As I mentioned before, there's a lot of information that it's not in your face enough, or it's not quite as well defined as it should be. We'll be focusing on cleaning that stuff up. In the far future, we're looking at non-combat roles, things like the War Reporter and Harvester. These, of course, don't make sense in every game mode, so they go hand in concert with things that we will be bringing to you in the future. For example, the Conquest game mode that we've spoken about at length. That makes a lot more sense for a Harvester there. A Harvester wouldn't make a lot of sense in an ambush match. Also, one thing to keep in mind is when we develop these non-combat roles, every non-combat role you have is essentially taking up a slot in your team that could be contributing to winning a battle. So we need to be really careful in how we introduce these things. There might be fun ideas, but they need to really affect either the meta gameplay, they need to affect planetary conquest in some way, or the minute-to-minute on-the-ground gameplay for them to really be useful. Race-specific HUDs, this is something that I'm personally very excited about. You will still get all the information that you get right now, even more perhaps, but the big thing with race-specific HUDs is really just verisimilitude. I'm actually in the story roundtable later today, so I'm very much a proponent of the story and having things make sense, and this is something that would make, you're in an Amar suit, you really want to feel like, hey, this is an Amar operating system, it's designed for me. So we'll be working on that. Environment-specific suits, this is also something that I'm really excited about. Again, it's a ways away, but what we want to do is introduce environment attributes and environments that actually affect your gameplay. So if you're fighting on a snowy planet, for instance, your weapons take longer to overheat, these sorts of things. And we'll be introducing suits and weapons and modules to sort of ameliorate those effects. So again, this ties back into planetary conquest. If you have a district on a planet with these kinds of attributes, you'd have to pretty much outrig your entire corporation with this sort of gear. Anyone coming to attack you would probably need to do the same in order to not have a disadvantage when they engage you. Weapons, much like the Dropsuits, we'll be focusing on fleshing out the racial variants. We'll have, coming up very soon, we'll have the Kaldarian Minmatar assault rifles. These are the rail rifle and combat rifle, respectively, if I'm not mistaken. The rail rifle is similar in terms of rate of fire and things to the current Breach, the Galente Breach assault rifle. It's much better, to be honest. I like it. It's a gorgeous weapon. It looks great. It feels good to fire. So I'm actually looking forward to getting that into players' hands. The combat rifle is similar to the burst rifle. It's a three-shot burst. It's a nice weapon. It feels visceral. It's also the Minmatar is my favorite race, so I'm looking forward to that coming out. We also have the Galente and the Kaldari pistols. That's the ion pistol and the bolt pistol, respectively. The ion pistol is a short-range, fast-firing pistol. It also has a very, very powerful charge shot. The bolt pistol is a giant Desert Eagle. It'll essentially put a hole in anything that's in front of it. So yeah, that should give you plenty of options for your sidearms. We'll also be adding the ability to carry multiple grenade types. This, of course, ties in with the Dropsuits and how many slots you have on the Dropsuit. But again, this is just one of those things that I think will help people better engage and better form specific roles. It's something that's a long time coming, I think. In the far future, we're looking at Tech 3 weapon customization. So we'll have attachments and parts for weapons, and you can actually just build your dream weapon. Again, this is a ways down the road, but we have a lot of designs on these already, and we're really excited about getting this in. Tied to that, we have the even manufacturing of weapons, of course. This will go into Planetary Conquest, and then feed back into the market eventually, having these weapons assembled from raw materials that you've claimed either from mining in EVE or from Planetary Conquest. Equipment in the near future will be, again, focusing on improving the existing equipment. Personal and squad restricted drop uplinks. This will help greatly, I think, with squads coordinating around the battlefield, not having the rest of the team spawning on a drop uplink, using up clones, using up spawns on that drop uplink, and essentially wasting what is a very good tactical opportunity. Repair tool lock-on improvements. Right now, the repair tool uses a single socket on the character mesh to actually lock on. It's kind of fidgety. You don't always get the lock as easily as you would like. That can sometimes result in death. That's not fun. So we'll be fixing that. We'll be looking at prototype colored nano hives, so you can tell just at a glance that, oh, this will resupply, this will heal me, or it'll do both. New equipment coming down the line. We'll have the bubble shield and the cloak field. The bubble shield is exactly what it sounds like. It's a spherical shield that protects you from gunfire. And by gunfire, I mean snipers. Hate those guys. Cloak field. This is what we've all dreamt about since we all watched Predator. You're invisible, enough said. Going back to the electronic warfare that we spoke about, we have the stasis webifier and the energy drainer. These will be implemented on vehicles as well. So, but of course, the method of delivery is very different. In vehicles, you would have it as a module. On Dropsuits, it makes far more sense to have these sort of as equipment of some kind. So we'll be adding those into the game as well. In the far future, we're looking at short-term effects with using the nanite injector. Currently, when you're down on it's only really organized squads that use the nanite injector effectively. A lot of people, they don't wait to be revived. They suicide and that's it. What this will hopefully do is people will be encouraged to wait for that revive, because when you get back up, you will actually be better than the state you were in when you went down. You will get something like an armor damage bonus for a short time, making you a little, not invulnerable, but just better. And I think this will be a good addition. We also have infantry deployed installation turrets coming, things like sentry guns that you can actually bring down from sort of OMS, just orbitally delivered installations. Again, these things I think will be very good for squads and just generally controlling the battlefield. Modules. In the near future, we're going to expand the Dropsuit module categories that we currently have. Right now, we have just pretty much all the basic categories covered. We're now going to expand with a little more refined options, just things. So if you're going to armor tank or you're going to shield tank, you have a few more options at your disposal. The ferroscale plates, these are like the current armor plates. They give you far less HP, but they don't have the speed penalty. So I think those will be enjoyed by a lot of armor tankers. We have the reactive plates that give you a teeny tiny amount of HP, but they also do armor repairing. We have the shield energizer. This is very much like the current shield recharger. It gives you a much greater boost, but it does reduce your total shield HP as a slight penalty. We have the PDU, the Power Diagnostics Unit. This gives you a little bit of PG, and it also reduces the time it takes for your shields to kick back in once they take damage. Going forward as well, we'll be fixing the active vehicle module usage. Anyone who's used the vehicle modules knows they're just not good, to be point blank. They, just aiming at things using the actual lock-on mechanics, those are not great. The modules themselves could do with a very good balance pass, so we'll be focusing on that in the next while. In the far future, we're looking at active modules for Dropsuits. These will be activated using the Cortex. There will be things that it's not good for the minute-to-minute gameplay, the second gameplay. If you go into a fight and you have to pull this clunky thing up and use that, they'll be more used for before you enter a firefight, you activate something to give you that sort of extra half a second or second you need, perhaps in a really intense firefight. We'll also be looking at area of effect modules. We currently have these in the game, but there's a whole suite of support UI and just functionality that we really need to make these things good. There's nothing worse than being affected by something and you not having any clue why it's happening or at what point it starts happening, at what range or things like that. So these will be a bit down the pike. With vehicles, the near future, we'll be focusing on improving the vehicle balance. Right now, things are not up to snuff. They're not exactly what we want, but we're putting a lot of effort into fixing those. We'll be improving the minute-to-minute vehicle gameplay as well. And exactly like the weapons and Dropsuits, we'll be focusing on fleshing out all the race variants. We'll be introducing the MR and Minotaur vehicles, as well as the turret variants, as well as the lasers and the projectile turrets. We'll also be improving the first-person and third-person HUD on these vehicles. Right now, there's just there's a lot of annoying things about the HUDs. Those will be getting better. In the far future, we'll be looking at firing from open kit positions. These are sorts of things that will make the LAV, for instance, a much more viable thing. Having somebody the passenger sitting next to you, not just being a passenger, but being an active participant in the battle. These they're fun and they're just important, I think. As well as introducing new vehicle classes. And yeah, that's pretty much what we'll be doing in the short term. Any questions? Yeah, I think there's a microphone. Sorry, guys, just any questions? If you could just come up to the microphone here. You can.
So in EVE, we have drones, repair drones, combat drones, stuff like that. Has there been any thought given to, I heard rumors of there being a drone hive that you could deploy. I was also wondering if you could have maybe a grenade slot drone that you chuck in the air and it follows you around for a bit or something like that.
Do you want to take it?
Nope, can't hear you.
Nope. Well, I'll take that then.
Use semaphore.
Yeah. Okay. Drones right now we're really focusing on for PvE. You'll be fighting against drones. Having drones fight the rogue drones, having drones fight with you is something we've definitely thought about. It makes a lot of sense. But again, looking at what provides the most bang for the buck on the battlefield, there are technical limitations and restrictions. We do need to keep sort of our skeletal mesh count down. So having an extra thing floating around next to you is essentially like having another player with you in the battle. These things obviously affect performance. They affect gameplay. So we would like to do that.
So maybe you should start coming down and use this microphone.
I'm gonna get it fixed. Oh, no, it's back. Sorry. Yeah, so essentially we're looking at it, but don't expect that in the near future.
Okay, I had a second question, which was, have you given any thought to things, to variants of orbital strike with different types of module, say ECM orbital strikes or remote rep orbital strikes or something like that?
Yeah, we definitely thought about that. Again, this ties into our full-term electronic warfare gameplay. Having those kinds of strikes, basically having it right now, it would pretty much just take down shields. It wouldn't be as effective as we'd like. So once we get all those support systems in, having something like that would make perfect sense. Having that come down and just disabling a bunch of stuff would obviously cripple the enemy side. So yeah, we're definitely looking at that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've just been in the Dust tournament before, and one of the things that came out was quite a few of us agreed that the basic controls for the vehicles are really, really unintuitive. Are there any plans to look at those in general?
Yes. No, we're doing it as we speak. There's a big push, like Gavin said earlier, on improving the vehicle gameplay. This is stuff that should be coming your way soon, like in the next couple of months. So yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
On the topic of vehicles again, currently all the ground vehicles have a capacity of 3 people, but you have 4 people in a squad. Is this being looked at?
You have 6 people in a squad now.
Yeah, in Uprising it's 6.
Ryan has been experimenting with adding positions into vehicles. But of course, the number of turrets, for example, on the HAV, there's only 3 turrets, and we can't really add more without it starting to look a little bit silly. You know, you could imagine a tank with 10 turrets. But you know, that doesn't mean that a 4th guy couldn't do something. There is one thing that I'd like to mention. We're adding vehicle capacitors. So similar to Eve, where you have a battery that you need to manage and stuff like that. And there's there's a lot of possibilities that come with that, with a supporting role in a vehicle. You could imagine the 4th guy being able to manage something on his own. But these are ideas that we've been thinking about. But yeah, we are looking into adding more.
Yeah, like just even from the aspect of getting from point A to point B, if you could even just hang on to a vehicle, it makes sense, because right now in actual Dust that's live, it sucks to be that one person who's off in a Jeep by yourself.
Right. You could also deploy in another vehicle.
Yeah, no, I mean, also to Atlee's point, we will be having 6-man squads in Uprising, so it does alleviate that slightly, because you can now have two fully stocked LAVs. But yeah, there are issues just talking to that, having people hanging on vehicles. It's not something that the physics engine supports very well. It's not an easy thing to do, so that's not likely to happen. But you know, we have new vehicle classes coming, and they will address, again, tying into squad gameplay and the whole combined role design philosophy that we're going for.
Right there. This is most noticeable in public matches, but we've currently got a situation where you can have a team that's winning, gets more war points, can bring in an orbital bombardment, therefore can continue winning, and you just end up in this cycle where very, very quickly the team that deploys that can, pressure the other team into absolute decimation. I mean, I've been in endless matches where it's not even close. One team in a public environment just absolutely floors the other one. Mm-hmm. Is there any kind of thoughts of actually addressing that?
It's not an easy thing to address, I think, simply because it really depends. Again, it's snowballing and having sort of negative reinforcement. That's obviously a really bad thing. But in those situations you mentioned, is the team that's losing, have they squadded up? Are they coordinating? I mean, obviously there's differences in just skill level, but if one side is coordinating as squads and the other side isn't, it's generally going to end up in a walkover. We're looking at addressing things like this with matchmaking. There'll be matchmaking improvements as well. It's not mentioned here because it's not really core shooter. It's outlying systems, but yes, matchmaking should help alleviate some of that, just to get people of similar skill levels. But it's all about coordination, because the other team might be getting orbital strikes, but even if you're losing and you're working together as a squad, you should be able to get an orbital strike of your own and hit back. So yes, we're obviously always looking at that, but it's not an easy thing. It's not as just simple as, oh, we'll change this and it'll now be better. So yeah. I
think some of the problem probably derives from the fact that when you first picked Dust up, even though there's a lot of text-based tutorials, if you want to call them that, it's still not overly obvious if you're not into the EVE universe or the Dust universe. Have you considered kind of mixing that with just a standalone offline map where they can do a few things like hack, call in an orbital bombardment purely offline, so they can actually see what these mechanics are? So join a squad might be your first one, and there's a few NPCs in that squad. Just a very quick introduction to the game. I really think that would add a lot to it.
That is exactly what we're working on.
Cool.
So you'll be getting a weapons lab, just on top of tutorialization, a weapons lab that allows you to try out different weapons, dropsuits, vehicles, that kind of stuff. Try it before you buy, I guess. So you can sample how it feels and stuff. Moving forward on that, we would love you to be able to invite a friend into these little, arenas. Just like in EVE, when you exit station in 0-0 and you have a friend shoot you, to test your fit, that kind of stuff. We would like to, have something similar in Dust. But yeah, tutorialization, improving the MPE, it is very important, and we are working on it actively.
Cool, thank you.
Can I ask you guys to state your character name and corp or alliance, that kind of stuff, so we know who you are?
I'm Avena Saran from Ekcho, or Anahit, depending on which game. But yeah, 2 points really. Spawn mechanics. Currently, when you spawn, if it's just been camped, you're dead before you even spawn in. There's just no point spawning in, and it's a wasted suit at that point. Is there anything you're looking at to stop that?
There are 2 things in Uprising. We fixed the scanners to, like Gavin said, to a large extent. Now the CRUs, for example, have a scan radius that actually works. It used to have a scan radius, but it wasn't tuned right. So you can see if there are enemies around the CRU. We've also added cloaking. Now, this is the tracer bullet of the cloaking that Gavin is talking about, but basically you are cloaked for a couple of seconds before, before you're not cloaked and people can shoot you. Because before, while we were loading in the scene, you would appear on the battlefield for like a split second before you actually saw the battlefield, giving your opponent an edge. So we've solved that by giving you a grace period. Now, you're not exempt from people bumping into you. You are physically there, and if someone bumps into you, you will decloak. But in our tests, we found that that rarely happens. And it's completely changed spawning in.
Okay.
Now you kind of see, and you can rotate your character without, well, I'm rotating. You can rotate the character without going out of cloak, but the minute you move or switch a weapon or shoot or something like that, you obviously decloak. But yeah, it should address a lot of the problems. But if you have any more ideas and stuff, then let us know.
Okay, thank you. The other one is keyboard mapping. I play with mouse and keyboard primarily, and I'd like to be able to map my things like my grenade keys and that. So anything you're looking at? I know it's not quite core, but I was just wondering if you're looking into it.
It's on our roadmap. It's a little bit complicated. Like we have to build a whole system around it, and this is a console game, so the menus and stuff like that have to make sense. But it is on our roadmap. I don't actually know when we plan to tackle it.
I'm not sure. I mean,
I can't
as you mentioned, it's on there, but it might be bumped down a bit.
Yeah, it's a, you know, feeling good while shooting is a little bit more important than moving the grenade key. But we want it as well. We play with keyboard and mouse as well. Like, what we can do in the meantime is give you multiple mappings. You know,
Yes.
maybe we should do something on the forums where we have a vote or something on
Yes,
the
that would be
mappings.
lovely. That would be lovely. Other than that, Uprising is a fantastic upgrade from Chromosome, so well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my character is LT Simon from Red Thrash Buckler's Corp. My question is, I have both rifle. I have looked for stats. They look okay. But when I tried, I didn't like it. That was not my stuff. So I have a 95 of it in my stockpile, and I never will use it. Can I try equipment before I buy it?
So, like I said before, we're going to be adding a weapons lab, which is try before you buy. You'll be able
Yes,
to test
shooting
out
range.
Huh?
Shooting range.
Yeah,
or
shooting
something.
stuff. Maybe drones.
Yeah, it's essentially a shooting range. So, as Atli mentioned, it's sort of in the context of the NPE. But yes, we're looking at adding that to the market so that you can actually spawn in, try out a weapon, see what it looks like, feel it. Because we have so many side grades, trying them and just getting a feel for it, and then buying. Yeah.
Do you plan to use it? Do you have to learn it, the skill, before I try?
No, obviously the weapons lab would just be free. You can try everything sort of without needing the skill. But obviously you could buy it, but you're not going to be able to use it in a real match.
Yes. And whole list of equipment or just rifles? Can I try Dropsuits or vehicles?
Yeah, I mean, if it's on the market, you should be able to try it.
There is one thing I would like to add to this. Your problem is that of stack piles. You know, you end up with piles of stuff in your inventory that you don't want to use. The same thing happens when you progress past certain things. And you might have hundreds of items of something, a gun or something that you just don't want to use anymore. the obvious way to solve that is to activate the secondary marketplace. Allow you guys to trade and stuff like that.
Yeah, Threesh Yamathon from Fuzzy Nuts Attack Squirrels. I have two questions. The first one is, you talk about Tech 3 weapons in the near future, where you can modify the weapons.
Far future.
Yeah, but like I liked the assault rifle, but I really don't like the iron sight. I would really like to have a not a full zoom, but like a scope, because that's, yeah.
How you roll?
Huh?
That's how you roll?
Yeah, exactly. And then the second question is, right now you have the restock feature, but I already have 11 A-type something suits. I just want to restock the modules that are not available, and I have to go in and manually restock every single module. It can be rather cumbersome, especially if you also do it on tanks that have several slots. So you have to okay, I only need 2 hardeners now, so I have to go and manually do it instead of just, if it's restocked, it only restock the thing you actually need to be able to deploy the fitting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the things we can do to alleviate that is allowing you to restock by category. So if you just want to restock your shield hardeners, it'll just restock everything. So if you're using multiples of the same type, those are UI improvements that we will certainly look at it. But again, they're because given the amount of things that we would really like to get in to improve the core shooter, it might not be that high on the backlog. But yes, we will definitely look at that.
Yes, thank you.
What about the iron sight?
About the side question, that really depends on the weapon type. Right now, I mentioned the new variants that are coming, like the rail rifle and the bolt pistol. These will have variants. We will be tying them to, like you all know, the tactical, the burst, these kinds of types. Before Tech 3 comes out, we'll be tying the scopes to a specific type of weapon. Tacticals will generally have a longer sight. Weapons with the shorter range, things like sort of the breach or the rail rifle, they might get a red dot sight, something less like that. But no, we won't be allowing you to modify any of that anytime soon. But we will have these options, but not every weapon will have all of them. For example, the Galente assault rifle might not have a red dot sight.
Hello, Xynos from Full Contact. Will there be a possibility of a command vehicle where I can start orbital strike out of it?
A command vehicle?
Yeah, for example, that I don't have to get out of the vehicle to start an orbital strike.
Yeah. That's definitely something that we're looking into.
Okay, thank you.
Marlon Pike from Planetary Response. First question is, following on from an earlier question about different control setouts, would there be any possibility of associating different control layouts or settings with different suits or vehicles? So I can have one setup for, say, sniping, one for driving LAVs, because how I use the controls, particularly on the PlayStation 3 controller, changes a lot depending on what I'm doing.
Well, you can do that today. You can select a different loadout or a control layout for the vehicles, ground vehicles or area vehicles and stuff like that.
Oh, cool.
And then, of course, the infantry, because they are inherently different. You know, you're doing different things with it.
Right.
Vehicles have active module selection, that kind of stuff. Infantry doesn't.
Okay, that's cool.
Hi guys, just thought I'd join the queue again, give someone else a chance. Chase from Ectu. I know there's been a lot of work done in this area already from one of the talks you saw earlier on. It was something that quite a few people have mentioned, but in certain situations, the frames per second can really drop through the floor still. I assume you're pretty much pushing current gen technology. Could we perhaps have a few options in there for, no, I appreciate it's primarily a console game, but to at least tweak a few things. So, for example, being able to turn the materials right down, the particle system generation right down, so things are a lot smoother. I mean, along the same vein, could we perhaps be able to entirely hide the weapon and have it just so we've got where you've got the aim, for example, the circle grows the less accurate you are, and then shrinks when you stop firing, ready to fire again. Just so we can reduce a lot of that clutter that's actually on the screen at a given time.
So we can, but we are not GPU bound, the graphics processing unit bound today. So the graphics are actually rendering really well. What is slowing the game down at times is how we both replicate from the client onto the server, sending all of that data, basically like the typical lag, and just the sheer amount of stuff on screen. And that's not the amount of particles, although the particles are expensive. It's more the amount of actors, you know, the players, vehicles, installations, and stuff like that.
Yeah, skeletal meshes and physics, really.
Huh?
Skeletal meshes and physics.
Yeah, skeletal meshes, we call them, and they're physics. And we are constantly doing improvements to that. There are certain map conditions, combinations that kind of increase the likelihood of this happening. So we're looking into that as well, because the maps have, you know, collision, that kind of stuff. So the amount of, I guess, buildings or boxes and stuff like that will affect this. So we've even started excluding certain combinations on Tranquility and in Uprising, because we know that they are bad, you know, for the game. Now, the best way to solve this is to continue the optimizations on the skeletal stuff and solve the environment stuff once and for all. And that's what we're working on now. You saw the terrain improvements yesterday at the keynote,
Yeah.
and Anders Kaspersson had a cool talk about that at yesterday noon. That's where we started. Now, for the summer, we're doing the static mesh, or the buildings and stuff like that. We're making that system very, very fast. That should help this a lot. But yeah, I mean, the only thing we can do is just continue optimizing and making it better. It is already a lot better than Chromosome. So, you know, we're on a good track.
Cool. And second quick question, are you currently happy with the balance between Aurum and boosters and items in general on the market? Because currently, I don't know what the currency is like in other places in the world, but certainly in the UK, you can pay a little bit more than an EVE subscription per month, and it doesn't quite work out to get 2 active boosters at the same time. You kind of you have a bit of an overlap when the months are running. You get a little bit of spare Aurum. Do you think that needs tweaking a little bit? Do you think it's fair that you could be able to say buy both boosters for about £10 a month, which is about the same as an EVE subscription? Because when you get to the point where they start overlapping and you need to buy multiple blocks of it, I think personally you tend to get less sales with something like that. I'd rather just have a straightforward price where I can buy those.
This is really a question for Eino Joas, our economist. He's here at Fanfest. You can find him at the PvP room. I don't think we are constantly learning and iterating and stuff like that on this, but when it comes to the Aurum items, we try to not do sweeping changes, especially on the boosters, because they are so important to the progression in the game. But yeah, I suggest that we maybe later today or something, we just talk to him and get it straight from the horse's mouth.
Cheers, thank you.
Yep.
Right, hi, the Grey Cardinal from PSU Go Syndicate. Have you thought about... Sorry, hello.
Okay.
Have you thought about different ammo types for the mass driver, perhaps like smoke grenades or flashbangs?
We have, right now sorry, did I cut you off? Okay. Right now we don't really support secondary fire modes, so to do that, there would have to be unique types. There's not too much aside from sort of increasing the particle effects budget from creating smoke grenades and things like that for the mass driver. We've definitely bounced around the ideas of, oddly enough, having a projectile that bounces around before it explodes. So yeah, it's something we could do. There are currently no plans to do that, but there's probably not that much stopping us from doing it.
Okay, and one more question. What about like nighttime levels where you'd have to use night vision or something like that? Have you thought about anything like that?
Digital cameras today have evolved to a point where you can almost shoot in darkness and it just looks like daylight.
Yeah.
So I think that 20,000 years from now, they'll have pretty good cameras.
Okay.
We do have a night level, and it has a big-ass moon. You can see it in the tournament, I think, at some point. That's where we are with that right now, but we have talked about vision modes and how cool it would be to have, IR and night vision and stuff like that.
All right.
So yeah, I mean, we'll definitely explore it once we've done, you know, the base foundation and the core of the game.
Yeah.
But it's not on our plans right now. So
Cool. All right. Thank you. Keep it up.
thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, Kazran from What the French. I have two questions about stuff you already said you were working on, but I think the community would enjoy an update about them. It's training mode, so cops can practice, you know, various stuff. You mentioned the weapons lab, and it's kind of the same spirit there. And the other part is question about what happened to Skirmish 1.0. Because if you watch the forums, there's a lot of question about it.
About what, sorry?
Skirmish 1.0, the
skill
old
list.
Skirmish.
The two-stage skirmish?
Oh, skirmish.
There's two-stage battles.
It's still there in the system, but we turned
out
it off.
there in the system.
We are going to bring it back.
Yeah?
Yeah.
See? And what about training mode? Do you have plans for that? Yeah.
We really want to do it. We're going to start with the weapons lab. We feel that it's a good first step, you know, to allow you to test your own gear and gear from the market and stuff like that. Yeah. But yeah, we would like to have a training mode.
And do you have a vision of what it could be potentially?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Weena's from Betamax, and I want to know possibly about adding maybe a tactical overlay, sort of like in EVE, so that you can know your weapon ranges more quickly.
That's a good idea.
Something like that really ties into target intel. It's one of the things that we're trying really hard to improve upon. You know, right now, just the basic target intel is not that usable. So we'll be focusing on improving that, getting that usability and that UI, giving you the feedback you need, sort of the just-in-time sort of information. But yes, once we get the basic information and you sort of being able to use that effectively, we will definitely expand on that. A lot of this ties into the electronic warfare that we want to do. There's no point in removing people's information as a tactic if it wasn't that useful in the first place, you know, so to them. So yes, this is all part of the small improvements we're making as we get to full-scale electronic warfare.
And like he's just tacking onto that, by improving the overall system, the scanning system, the information that you can get to the player, and the HUD improvements that Gavin talked about, I don't see why we wouldn't be able to maybe add a module, maybe it's one of the active modules that Gavin was talking about that would allow you to temporarily, boom, you know, get the tactical overlay, like in EVE. But we have to start with making sure that the core system is proper before we add more graphical effects on it. Does that answer your question?
Yes. It's Marlon Pike from Planetary Response. Are there any plans for allowing us to interact more with battlefield objects, things like destructible cover, maybe interacting with some of the like civilian equipments, like vehicles, cranes, etc., that are placed on the battlefield?
Like gates and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. So destructibles are on the roadmap. We're not going to go all the way in the near future, like Battlefield 3 style. It is simply a different type of experience. And also space concrete is really strong.
Yeah, but space guns are really good as well, though.
But yeah, the destructible objects, we're going to add that in. I can't say when. I mean, we have to fix the lag first, and then we'll add it in. As for interacting with objects, we have had that in the game in prototypes and stuff like that. And if you guys want it, if you want gates that can open or doors and stuff like that, then we'll definitely start or continue those prototypes.
Yeah, certainly just makes the battlefield a bit more dynamic.
Absolutely.
The other question was, are there any plans for a comparison tool similar to the one in EVE to allow you to more easily compare, say, weapon ranges, rates of fire, damages?
Yep. So we're working with the market. You saw yesterday we've done a lot of accessibility improvements on the menu, but of course we're not done. You know, we attack the path to game and the spawn screen and stuff like that first. What we're doing now is looking at the market and the fitting and stuff like that, tying all that, you know, more closely together. And one of the things in the market is the adding the ability to effectively and properly do a diff between two items. Not only the same type of items, but also, I mean, sometimes you want to buy a gun, but at the same time you need to know, stats of a dropsuit or something.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to compare it like an assault rifle and a laser rifle for...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that will be added. Instead of having a single show info, you might be able to have two show infos.
Okay.
Yeah, hi, I'm Boat from Faded. Have you considered having stations in gas planets and stuff, like close quarters combat and stuff?
Cloud City?
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, we have.
Is it far in the pipeline, or?
No, it's not far in the pipeline. We have prototypes and previs. Cameron mentioned it in the Planetary Conquest talk in the Q&A earlier. Lava planets and cloud planets and stuff like that. But we haven't fully fleshed out the temperate planets, and we're going to start with that and focus on becoming very good at that first. And then we'll add that stuff in. And that's material for an awesome expansion, So.
Right. Thank you.
Kane Spur of the Imperfects. I guess my question kind of relates to the earlier market comparison. Just, it would be great to have more stats for the weapons, like optimal range, that kind of stuff. Because, talking about the tactical overlay, that may be not necessary if you know this weapon's optimal's 150 meters, this weapon's 75 meters, and maybe even have DPS stats. This gun will do this much damage over time. Just make it easier to kind of get a feel for what that weapon is through numbers. I know you don't want to make it too cluttered, but...
Sexy graphs.
Yeah.
Okay, I can take that. Information, right now we don't do a great job of giving you all the information you need to make the decisions we want you to make on the battlefield. So again, this ties into sort of the UI and usability improvements that are going ahead. One thing to keep in mind with the weapons, we're actually looking at revamping them slightly so that you will end up having, like right now we don't even tell you the optimal range, you can deduce it from the target intel, but yeah, it's not a hard stat on show info. We will probably be adjusting that so you'll be able to know your optimal range, essentially then your effective range, at which point your damage is dropping off to the point where it's not usable, really. Right now, it's a hard drop. It actually stops doing damage. That'll change, and then you'll have sort of, it'll change so that beyond the ranges that sometimes feel like you should still be doing damage, you will then have your absolute range. So from your effective range to your absolute range, it'll drop off. So we will be making tweaks to that, and we will be providing the UI to see that.
Okay, excellent.
And it's going to be a combination of numbers and graphs, something more visual to show.
Okay, so keeping your head down and staying in cover is turning out to be very important if you want to survive more than 5 seconds in dust. Have you given any thought to a sticky cover system?
We have, but that's not likely to go in. It requires a lot of hand authoring to author the environment so that you know where to stick. It's not really, it's a useful feature, but I don't think it's the type of gameplay we want. It's not Gears of War, right, where you're running from cover to cover. Obviously, cover is important, but...
Well, my secondary concern is that, you've got all these fences and crates and stuff, and if you hide behind them, more often than not, the top of your head's still poking right over the top.
Yeah.
Or you'll have a situation where, 5 guys are Scooby-Dooing around a corner,
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
So, have you given any thought to maybe slightly scaling up the low obstacles just so people who hide behind them are actually hiding behind them rather than just sort of saying, here, you can have a free headshot?
Yes, those are things that we can definitely look to tweak. But yeah, we wouldn't be adding an entire new feature, but we can definitely tweak those sorts of things.
Thank you.
Hello, Havana again. I'm asking for someone on TweetFleet called Spikers.
Cool.
He's asking for PS4 support. Are you guys looking into it?
I can answer that. No, if you want to go ahead. At the moment, we're still very focused on PlayStation 3. There's a lot of life left in the PS3. So, yeah, right now our full focus is on creating a AAA experience on the PS3.
Makes sense. Thank you.
I'm Tolkantar from the Imperfects. I was wondering if you considered adding better vaulting and perhaps some parkour or something, so that your character felt a little bit more powerful and mobile. That's something that works well in some other games. So it does require a lot of tuning and tweaking and making it actually work properly.
Yeah, no, but vaulting is definitely something. It's really frustrating, like, especially when you put armor plates on and you just can't make that jump. But it's something we're still giving a long, hard think to. One of the things we don't want to, because if you add a vaulting mechanic, it then becomes, can everybody vault? If you're a heavy, can you vault? Is this something we want from somebody?
Seems like something that the suits should sort of
exactly. So
help
it's
or hinder. I think that's fair.
Exactly, and so we don't want to get rid of the fact that your choice of a suit will affect your mobility and how you navigate the battlefield. We don't want heavies jumping over balconies and those things. It makes him a lot more mobile. The whole point to the heavies is it's harder for him to get around, and he's not that mobile. So yes, we're still looking at vaulting. I don't think a decision has been made whether we will implement it or how we would implement it if we did so. But yes, we're looking at it.
It would be a nice trade for the slower strafe speed thing, you know.
Yeah.
Iron Wolf Saber from Betamax. Currently on the market and all the items, there's a rather large disjointment on information between skills that benefit that item and the item itself. It's especially more apparent in Uprising with the new suits with bonuses being built into them, because I can go to the suit and look at all the stats, but there's no indication that it gets bonuses from the skill from a lot of these items. So would that be a possibility in the future to have an additional page that gives that information and maybe even actively update with the player's own skill?
Yeah, that's something that right now that's very frustrating. Again, it comes back to UI and usability. What we do currently is, like show info, we're pulling the stats directly from the database. And so yeah, it's very frustrating that you look at the base stats of a rifle, but now you've trained up assault rifle proficiency, your base damage stat goes up, and that's not reflected in the show info. You still see it as it was. So a lot of these sort of things create that smudginess, that confusion, that players don't know exactly what kind of damage they're doing or the exact performance of a piece of gear. So we want to change that. We're looking at changing that, but it all comes down to UI and usability.
Okay.
I'm Sakane from Intaki Liberation Front. I was wondering if you guys have any plans on correcting the female avatar walk animation. She kind of looks like she's a Barbie in body armor, and I think a female mercenary is not going to be walking around looking like she's in 6-inch heels.
Yeah, we have actually talked about it quite a lot internally.
Great.
We are going to fix it. She's not going to walk like a Barbie. She's
Thank
going to
you.
walk like Sigourney Weaver or something, or Michelle Rodriguez.
Yeah, no, I think that...
Good, thank you.
Hey again. I received the questions on one of the forums about head glitching. You know, those people who you just see them but you can't hit them. It's mostly a sniper thing. Did you guys solve it?
Wait, someone was complaining about the snipers popping parts of their head, then you're saying that it's not possible.
What?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I didn't quite hear that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So you'll see the object, it'll be in the distance, but it's like the geometry's maybe not rendering properly or something, so you'll shoot and it won't actually hit them.
This might be related to, again, the optimizations and things we've done. We've been very aggressive in our culling distances. Essentially what that means is things are, even though they exist, they're not visible at certain ranges. Again, this has just gone in Uprising, so we do need to do a lot more tweaking on this system. But yeah, right now they were probably on the outer edges of certain things, opportunities where, or not opportunities, but just instances where somebody will be invisible and they're shooting at you, or you can't see them. So yeah, these are issues. We set these ranges independently for different things, for vehicles and drop suits, and we need to try and get a better balance. It might not always be perfect, but it will be better.
Thanks.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely the optimizations. Could you guys play Uprising and give us feedback? See if you can like replicate or... Okay, cool.
Sorry guys, if you're going to talk, can you maybe just talk in the mic? It helps before we're recording and just...
Those guys aren't there to fight, so we'll see in the actual bit.
Okay, cool. Forums it is.
Okay, I think in that case we are done.
We
excellent.
are.
Yeah, we are. Actually, we're just on time. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.